RWBY Volume 7 Chapter 1, The Greatest Kingdom, has officially released, so let me break it down for you. So, Volume 7 picks up right where Volume 6 left off, literally. All of our characters are arriving to Atlas where they are shocked to see the defenses the kingdom has put up. Because of this, they aren't going to be able to reach Ironwood so easily. Also, Atlas's defenses are kinda trash. They'll be sure to ask about 5 times without getting any sort of answer before they decide to think something seems suspicious. Because of this, our team land down in the city of Mantle and ditch the plane. After a bit of a stroll through the streets, seeing how worn down the place is, doing a bit of vandalizing themselves for literally no reason at all, and commenting how awful the place is, one of the drunk locals gets defensive about his home kingdom, and so our heroes take the only logical decision possible, and that's by physically throwing him in the trash. It was so close. It was so close to being a good scene, but it ruined it at the end. I kid you not, it was like Blake was trying her damnedest to keep the scene moving along. She was just like, listen, the guy's drunk, he's upset, probably can't be reasons with, let's just move along. But then they decided, this guy's racist though, and because of that, he can't go unjusticed. So they made Weiss throw him in the trash. Why? To defend her friend, I guess, and sort of act like the team is back together for each other. Here's why I don't like this scene, and weirdly enough, it could have worked out with and or without Weiss's act. Weiss throws this dude in the trash, and the scene plays out like, oh, teehee, thanks for defending me. But in reality, what has just happened was physical action was taken against a human for discriminating against a faunus. Is this not the exact reason Blake left Adam's white fang and restarted the old one? Because physical action was not what they believed in? What result did this achieve? I kid you not, what would have made this scene actually brilliant would have been if Blake sort of condemned what Weiss did, like, yo, no, you're giving them a reason to hate us and you at the same time. She needs to work on that Gira face of disapproval. But God forbid there actually be conflict and differing motivations and opinions within Team RWBY instead of just a hive mind of thoughts and personality. My mistake. But in all honesty, I think if they had done something like that, I think the scene would have been brilliant, and if they had removed Weiss's action, there would have been nothing to say on my end. I actually thought Blake's character here was really good, because of that aforementioned peaceful approach she's trying to take in the same way her father once did. But it's just actions like these that are very hypocritical that the show just tries to make a feel-good moment, but it just does it in the wrong way. Anyway, Maria's got connections apparently, and so they go to visit Pietro, one of Atlas's greatest engineers. Also, in a sick gamer chair, he expositions the hell out of our characters, talking about how things went downhill for Atlas and specifically Ironwood after the fall of Beacon. Because someone, likely in their midst, hacked the code, and because of that, Ironwood has become a paranoid man with a beard. But Pietro isn't immune to his own old man habits, essentially just going like, wait, you? That arm? Your team? My daughter. Before he can finish a single one of his thoughts, Mantle is attacked by Grimm, giving us the traditional first episode fight. After a pretty cool fight unveiling the new Grimm, it is revealed that the reason old man Pietro couldn't finish a sentence was to reveal that Penny is still alive. Yay! Quite literally, none of the team is shocked about it, and just as they're heading off, some Atlas goons take down everyone, and they are now making their trip in the back of a police car. I legitimately want a spreadsheet in the form of video game patch notes from Volume 1 all the way to Volume 7 with the characters, stating buffs and nerfs to each of them, because Crow and Ren in this scene just got nerfed. Ren not only senses the thing, as the episode makes it a clear point to call out, but then most embarrassing of them all, Crow is the last man standing. Juniper was already taken down without him sensing, but then it's not until Team RWBY go down directly in front of his eyes that he then decides to spring into action, where he is taken down as well. Talk about nerfs, dude. Crow has been getting nerfed ever since Volume 3. Even his voice got nerfed. But in all seriousness, it was not the best showing from every one of our characters. On the topic of Crow, let's be honest, it doesn't really sound like him. It's close, don't get me wrong, it's in the ballpark. But Crow had a distinct distinctive voice that just doesn't sound the same anymore. Undeniably, Jason is doing his best, and I'm a fan of him from Borderlands, but it's kinda hard to fill the shoes of arguably one of the most iconic voices from the show. Imitating someone else's take, I can only imagine, is kinda hard to do. So, it was close, but no cigar. I'm just gonna tell you straight. Now for Penny. Penny. I thought this day might come. I've contemplated with it, weighed my thoughts for literally years at this point as to whether or not bringing Penny back would be a good decision or a bad one. And now that that time has finally happened and seeing how they decided to do it, I think it was a bad decision. To me, it all comes down to this single fact that it is the exact same Penny. Every memory, the same personality, the same character, just a different shell. Pretty much the exact same shell. By bringing back the same Penny, what it does is effectively minimize the impact of Volume 3. Penny's death signified change for the series, not just for the in-universe characters and story, but for quite literally the show itself. It was one of, if not the biggest moments to happen. It was designed to teach us that characters were not safe, plot armor was not a thing, and certain storylines can just end. It's not a fairy tale like you read to children, it's the harsh reality of the world. But she says salutations, so everything's fine again. I was never against the idea of Penny coming back, but I was against the idea of this Penny coming back. It seemed that what made Penny different from your average robot was her soul, quote unquote. She's capable of generating an aura, so that indirectly entails she has a soul, making her a literal one of a kind. And because she was different, she seemed as though she wasn't just data stored on a hard drive. I think bringing back Penny as the exact same person was a mistake. It makes what happens in Volume 3 seem like some cheap emotional manipulation which ultimately tricked everyone into believing something that was untrue, and that's consequences for the series. Every time the same character is brought back, no matter the story, it minimizes their story to an immeasurable degree. It's why I'm not for Pyrrha returning, or now Adam returning. I mean, just look at Cinder, she's been revived from the dead like 5 times and they just keep bringing her back and she's as wooden as a plank. But seriously, when a character is brought back from the dead, the emotional impact and meaning behind that character's death is ultimately minimized and usually does more harm than good. What interests me the most about Penny's reemergence is why. Why is she such an important character to the story that was being told this and next season that she warranted a revival? As of now, it's really hard to convince me that it was something other than fan service. In a very similar way to Neo last season, all I see Penny as right now is a demand from the audience for her character to return, as opposed to the story demanding her to return. Stories can bring characters back in a good way, but there better be a damn good reason for it. So if later in the volume it ends up justifying her return in a good way, so be it. I'll have had no problem with it. But if it doesn't, well, that's gonna hinder a big decision. Before in Volume 3, it was heavily implied that she was the person who they intended on transferring Amber's Fall Maiden powers into. And so all I can assume right now is that storyline is still in effect, just likely with the Winter Maiden. I don't see a reason for the same Penny from Volume 3 to be in Volume 7, aside from adding that slight bit of cheeriness to the story because we know that she's goofy. Anyway, it should be interesting to see what role Pietro plays in the whole thing. He is of course based off Geppetto from the Pinocchio story because, you know, Penny's inspired by Pinocchio. You have the whale here, where they were eaten and adopted Billy as his son. That's how the story went, right? Either way, we got 2 more characters to add to the cast. Team Juniper need to go. I mean, they're probably gonna add Penny to that team, but I don't know what needs to happen to them, but they have beyond no relevance to the story, and they need to be removed as soon as possible. Just add Penny to her team, and then like go on vacation. We already got 9 characters, now we have Pietro, Penny, inevitably Winter, Ironwood, Whitley, Jacques, and whoever else is introduced in Mantle. A little cluttered. I also very briefly want to mention Winter. I honestly don't know what to make of what may happen with her character and story. I mean, she obviously didn't make an appearance in person this episode, But Weiss is talking about her so much, painting her as like the one who is going to practically save them. And for whatever reason, part of me believes that it's setting up Winter like this only for it to be a letdown. That Winter isn't going to be the quote-unquote savior that Weiss believes her to be. Not in the sense that she's going to be like a bad guy or evil in any way, but part of me just believes something is wrong with Weiss's constant belief in her. It would be interesting if all three Schnee children were on separate sides of this conflict, so to speak. But there's no guarantee, it's just more of a vibe that I'm getting, if anything. In terms of the group who captured Team RWBY, I don't think they're Atlas. It may be answered in the next episode, but these videos are on a week delay, so the episode hasn't been released by the time most of you see these videos. But I don't know what it is about them. Maybe it has something to do with all of the posters we see around Mantle. There very clearly appears to be some sort of leader, and I think they are foreshadowing her. But it may be because of all the information, plus the inclusion of these people, I just don't buy into who they say they are. That plus the Faunus character, Atlas has sort of been described as the most racist kingdom of them all, not verbatim, and there are always people who go against the grain of the statistic, but the vibe I get just doesn't say Atlas soldier, rather renegades and rogues. So how was this episode? Well, it was somewhere between good and okay. Despite Penny's return being, in my decision, a bad one, its execution of it was pretty entertaining. There can be good scenes out of bad decisions, and while I fear the ramifications of what bringing Penny back did to the past, the episode didn't necessarily do anything bad with it. Just the choice is all I fear right now. Everything else felt pretty par for the course. There wasn't anything that happened this episode that I think was particularly stand out, and they were really banking on that Penny reveal. And without that moment, I think the episode is pretty bog standard. I think Mantle looks interesting, and what the season is offering does as well. Above all else, I'm just looking for what this show has lacked for so long, and that's some depth within the characters.